What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to this video. In this video, we're going to be looking at how you can create a light and dark mode, but also persist that over numerous sessions. So here we have a regular old website from Next.js, and when we click this button, we can set it to light or to dark mode. But if we set it to dark mode and refresh the page, it goes back to light mode because we're not storing any way to actually make this work. So by the end of this video, you'll understand how you can set cookies using Mantine and create a cool color switcher that will remember what your user selected each time they visit your site. So we're going to start with a base Next.js application. We're then going to add Mantine and Next cookies to allow us to set a cookie for the user once they've selected what mode they want. If they haven't selected a cookie, they'll just get light mode, and then after that, whichever one they select will be what they have. Now, this gives the user the perception that we care about their experience. There's nothing worse than using dark mode on an application, refreshing, and getting light mode blaring in your eyes, or vice versa. There's nothing worse than having the default be dark mode and you've selected light mode and it doesn't actually keep that around. So let's begin by looking at the Next.js application. So here we have a Next.js application. It's just the base one that comes with Create Next App. Now I've done many different videos on Mantine and I'll throw a few cards up one after the other in the top right hand corner. You can look at them and decide for yourself. We've got things like what Mantine is, as well as a full-blown tutorial that shows you how to set up Mantine from start to finish and how to use it to style components and create a layout. So let's start by adding in everything we're going to need to make this work. So this project itself is only going to be using a few things. We're going to need Next cookies, Mantine core. We're going to be needing a icon library to allow us to have a little button that the user can click. So let's start there. So let's do yarn add at mantine / core. We'll also do cookies - next. And we'll also do tabular icons react, which is one of my favorite libraries at the moment. And let's hit enter and then let those install. While those are installing, let's talk about why this is important. A user wants to feel like a website cares about their experience. It's a really important thing, and it also kind of goes with some accessibility. Allowing a user to select dark mode, which may be something that they need because they are affected by bright lights or white lights, and allowing them to persist that will give them the experience that they need. Now those packages have been installed, let's take a look at some more stuff. So we're going to be working on a few files. The app.js file here, we're going to override some stuff here. We're going to add the button in our index.js, and we're also going to have a component that will take care of the theme switching. So let's create a components folder in our root of our directory. And then let's call this color mode switcher.jsx, and we'll use that to create our color theme switching. So let's deal with this first and we can make sure that it works. And then after that, we can implement a way to store these cookies. So let's start by looking at this. So first we need to import a few things from Mantine itself, and then we can go from there. So let's start with the imports. So we're going to do import, and then we're going to do action icon. We're also going to import group, and we're also going to import use Mantine color scheme. And those are all coming from Mantine core. And then we're also going to import sun and moon. So import sun, moon from tabular icons react. And that will give us everything that we need. So now we've imported both the Mantine core functionality and the icons, we need to create our theme switcher. So what we can do here is do export function color mode switcher. And that's going to be a function with no props. And then we're going to have a const here that's going to hold on to the color scheme and the ability to toggle it. So we can do color scheme and toggle color scheme. That's going to equal use Mantine color scheme. And that's a function as well. And now we have that, we can actually create our return functionality. Now, the return functionality here is going to take in an action icon, which is essentially a button that allows you to use icons instead of words. And each time you click on it, it's going to use this toggle color scheme to toggle it between the original color and the new color. So we're going to use something called group here. If you don't know what this is, check out the tutorial. I'll throw it up again on the action cards here on YouTube, but it's essentially a flex box. So we'll do position equals center, and we'll put a margin at the top of extra large. And inside that group, we're going to have an action icon. And that action icon is going to take some props. So the first one is going to be on click, which is just a regular button on click. And all we're going to do is toggle color scheme. And that will allow us to toggle between the current color scheme and the new color scheme. We can then add the size here and we'll do 2XL. And then we're going to use the SX, which allows you to essentially tap into themes or anything of that nature. So sort of in the CSS world, we're going to use the SX here and we're going to pass in some properties. So we're going to do SX and then we're going to pass in theme. And we need to make sure it's in a set of curly braces here. And we're going to say background color. So background color is going to be theme dot color scheme. So we're going to pass in this color scheme here, theme dot color scheme. We're going to say equals dark. And then theme dot colors dot dark 6. So that's just an access to the theme colors of Mantine. And we're going to use dark 6 here. Or theme dot colors gray 0. Now let's just word wrap this real quick so we can see a bit better. So we're going to say if it equals this, then the color should be 6. Otherwise, the color should be gray. So that gets our background color. Then we also need just the regular color. So that would be for our font. So we can do theme.color scheme equals dark. We'll do theme.colors.yellow. So that would be like a yellow color. And we'll set that to yellow 4. Otherwise, theme.colors.blue, I guess, is a good color. And we'll do blue 6. Now, if you don't understand this part here, again, it's just part of Mantine. And if you want more in-depth stuff, check out the Mantine tutorial. I cover a lot of ways to use Mantine and how it all works. So now we have that. We're ready to do the next piece of the puzzle. And that is to essentially set what happens based upon dark or light mode when we're playing with our action icons. So to do this, again, you can just tap into this color scheme that we're using here and say, if this color scheme equals dark, then we can do one thing, otherwise do another. So this is, again, some React work here. We're going to do that, and we're going to set it to sun, and we can set it to size, let's say 20. Otherwise, if there isn't dark mode right now, we'll return the opposite, which will be moon. And we'll size that 20 as well. And then close out our slashes here. And let's see, do we need anything else? Yes, we need one of these. We don't need that. And we can hit save here. And that's it. So that gives us the ability to essentially toggle based upon colors. So we can test to see if this works out of the box, but first we actually have to set up Mantine. So we need to go to our app.js and wrap our application in our Mantine provider and the color scheme provider, and that will allow us to work with this. So we're inside of the app.js now, and this is where we're just going to add our provider. So we can just import mantine provider. We also need the color scheme provider. That's going to come from at mantine/core. And we also need to import use color scheme. And that's going to come from our mantine hooks, which, if you remember in the beginning, we didn't install this package. So let's install that now before we go any further. So do yarn add at mantine/hooks. And that allows us to hook into what the current color scheme is so that we can change it as we need to. So now we have that. We're also going to use useState here. So useState from React. And we'll use that to control the current state of the color scheme. And now we're ready to actually create our function here. So let's delete this part here. And also let's delete this part here and start working from there. So we're going to pass in props here, and then we're going to do const, and then we'll do component, and page props equals props. And that will be an easy way for us to access those. And then we can go from there. So now we're ready to use the color scheme. So we can say const preferred color scheme equal to use color scheme. So that will tell us what color scheme they currently want to use. And then we can say const color scheme and then set color scheme equal to use state. And we'll set it to this preferred color scheme. If only I could spell the word scheme. There we go. And then underneath that, we need to be able to toggle it. So we can say const toggle color scheme. And we'll set that equal to the value. And then we'll set the color scheme to value or color scheme equals dark or light. And then otherwise dark. So now we have this section here where we can toggle the color scheme based upon the value. We can now use that to return our application with a color scheme wrapped around it. So now we can do our return function here. And we'll just use a fragment to hold everything in place. And then we'll use that to create what we want. So what we want here is the ability to have a color scheme provider. And based upon what is that color scheme and what's being toggled, we can provide that to the user. So we can use color scheme provider. And then we can say color scheme equal to color scheme. And then the color scheme provider has the ability to toggle it. So we can say toggle color scheme. And we can set that equal to this toggle color scheme right here. So now we have those, we can wrap our mantine provider, which is a standard provider for mantine, similar to any other component-based option, such as Chakra. And we can pass in the theme, and we can tell it that we want the color scheme to be this color scheme here. And then we can just set the global styles. And with normalized CSS. And then inside of here, we can have our component. And we can just pass in our page props. And that's it. And now if we hit save, we should be able to use this color mode switcher wherever we want. So if we go to our index.js, which is what I said we were going to use, and we import this color mode switcher, so we can use this in here. So we say import color mode switcher from ... components / color mode switcher. That should give us the ability to toggle based upon what we want. And just make sure you put curly braces around it. And now we can use this where we want. So above the main, we can just toss in our color mode switcher. And let's test this out first. But again, we're not using cookies. So when we refresh the page, it won't work. So we've launched the application, and as you can see, we have a little moon here that if we click, it does toggle the different options from light and dark. So now that we have our working light and dark mode, we need to actually enhance this by allowing a cookie to be stored when someone changes it. This will then allow them to load in that cookie each time they visit, and they won't have some weird experience where they go from dark to light or light to dark, depending on what your defaults are. So let's start looking back at the code here, and let's make some edits. So the first thing we want to do is import in some cookies. So we can use get cookie and set cookie, and that comes from next cookies. Now this will allow us to set and get the cookie as needed. So first we want to change this now. So right now we're loading this from this color scheme, but we no longer need to really do that. What we're going to do instead is we're going to pass in a prop that will handle the color scheme for us. So we can do props.color scheme like so, and remove this preferred color scheme out. Now this will load in from properties and allow us to use whatever that user wants. So now we have that, we should talk about how we actually load in these props. So what we're going to do is down here is we're going to make some changes to this app in general. So what we'll do here, instead of doing it this way, we'll do export default function, and we'll call it app. And then we'll remove this out, and then we'll use this app to actually load in some props. So what we can do here is do app dot get initial props equals context, and we'll pass the context along. And what we'll do is we'll say inside of here, we'll set a color scheme. So color scheme, and then get cookie. So we're going to get that cookie and say, hey, whatever's inside is what it's going to be. And we're looking for mantine color scheme, comma, context. And then if that doesn't exist, we'll just do n. So now we have this part here where we're looking for this cookie. We can pass in the props up here. These props then will contain that color scheme because we've named it color scheme. And now we can make some changes to this toggle color scheme to make this work better. So what we can do is say toggle color scheme is this value here. Then we'll set curly braces and we'll delete this out for now. And we'll say const next color scheme and you can give it whatever name you want. So we can say the same thing as we just had there. It'll be color scheme equals dark or light else dark. And so we have this next color scheme, and what we can do now is actually set the color scheme and the cookie to the same thing. So we can say set color scheme next color scheme, and then set cookies, and then we'll set it to the same cookie name. So that's really important here, is we want to make sure that the name that we set the cookie to matches the name that we're getting the cookie from. If they don't match, this code won't work. So we want to make sure it's the same. So we can just copy and paste it from the below so that we know it always matches. So down here we have mantine color scheme. So let's go ahead and copy that and say set cookies equal to mantine color scheme, comma, next color scheme. So we want to set it to this value. And then we need to set the max age that we want this to be there for. So we can say max age 60 times 60 times 24 times 30 or 30 days. And then we can hit save here. And we need to make sure this matches. Set cookies, and hit save. And now we should be able to run this code, and now we should be able to set it and then refresh the page, and it should all stay the same. So let's go ahead and load up Google Chrome and see what happens. So here we are in our application. We now have it set to dark mode. And if I refresh the page, dark mode stays and we can actually see the cookie itself. So if you look in this localhost 3000, I think we can zoom in on this. Yes, we can. Mantine color scheme is set to dark. And if we change it here and then refresh the page again, you can see the color scheme is set to light, and that's the cookie that we just set. So there you have it, a way to set a cookie to either have light or dark mode in it, allowing your users to have the same experience every single time they visit the web page. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to drop it a like, comment on more things you want to see in the Jamstack, make sure you're subscribed and click the notification bell. And until next time, see ya.